All right, well, the thing says I'm live, so I guess I'm fucking live. How we doing, everybody? I'm not doing well at all, but that's okay. I'm broadcasting to a grand total of, people showed up. Hey, everybody, what's going on? It is I, your pal, J.Ishiro Finney, author, alien in a human suit, and someone who is probably just going through utter insanity right now. That's right, everybody. I've been having one shitty hell of a couple weeks. You know, it all started when I lost two chapters, but don't worry, I recovered those two chapters, and don't get me wrong, I am overjoyed about that. When I recovered them and reread what I had written, it's like, geez, I think I would have shot myself if I didn't actually recover this because it was so good. But it is safe, alas, and I have many a backup. But no, that was not enough. It was not enough to finally get through that, calm the fuck down, and sit down to finishing this fucking book, which needs to be done by now. And, the thing is, I knew I was. No, actually, no, I didn't realize the rabbit hole I was falling down. I thought, I was going to do a book here, first about how to write busty women. That book would have been done probably, 7 months ago if I'd done that. Fun, humorous, easily instructional book with some humor in it, mostly done already. But what came out of my soul was the fact that no, our culture is under assault. And no matter how much I wanted to talk about archetypes, I realized those archetypes were being repeatedly, over and over and over again, being attacked and destroyed. Humorously, what we would call the boobs of steel archetype, the warrior woman, the the warrior woman, the tomboy, the badass, the trope of the woman who is outwardly, her feminine strength is not only overt but outwardly visible. And from that, I fell into a horrible nightmare world of the gender war and just how screwed up this world gets. And I think on that one regard, I've hit this point in the research where some of the stuff I'm having to crawl through is so fucking disturbing that it really sits with me. And I'm having trouble. It's fucking me up. It's giving me nightmares. And it's also dislodging bad things in my brain. For those of you who are not aware of it, oh God, are we going on almost 2 years now? I have finally freed myself from my shithead parents. I have broken off all ties and have no connection whatsoever. Refuse to speak to them, refuse to let them manipulate me, refuse to put up with any more of this shit. And as much as that was the best thing to ever happen to me, yeah, and keep in mind, you're talking to a guy who got shot in the back and nearly died. I consider this better than living. That's how much of a relief it was. I found that going through this has dislodged so many memories I'd buried or could not process or accept as just how bad they were. And this is a roundabout story, but these last four chapters have been such a bag of worms of realizing that we're going from something as simple as let's get the artwork up, as fuck it, let me go grab the laptop. For those of you who have not known, my writing laptop never touches the internet, ever. There is no connection. It is safe. And I would recommend you all do the same because it's one way to avoid distraction. But let me give you a read through of where we're at in progress. I start out with an introduction to the book. Then I get into the first chapter, and it's called Power Girl versus Girl Power. And I use it as a case study for how Power Girl is the ultimate and, I think, archetypical poster child for the boobs of steel problem. She's the absolute pinnacle of a boobs of steel character. And for the last, almost 25 years now, feminists have been bitching and trying to destroy this character. And I go into the history of it, and I go into why this character is important, and that there has just been this bizarre concerted effort to destroy this character. And granted, this came about because this is one of Kat's favorite characters. This is where this chapter came from, right? And I'm going through this, and I finally I get to the next, just why are they trying to destroy this character? They're bitching about this one character whose boobs are bigger than the rest of the women in the DCU, and she's got a bit of a stockier build. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of women in the DCU, why must this one character be canceled? Why is this one character so fucking controversial? And frankly, because I think she looks a lot like this. And that gave rise to, well, wait, Harley Quinn is the one they all worship now. And, by comparison, Harley Quinn's a fucking whore now. I mean, she once was a very interesting and very tragic, very clever character, but they've pretty much turned her into, I don't know. I've gotten into this, but she is the crazy, screwed up, crazy manic pixie psycho girl who can do anything she wants without consequence, fuck everything in sight, and looks really trashy, but somehow this is the character that they all love. And that alone says a lot. So I get into that. I go into the next chapter. This one blew through very quickly. It was called Powerful Archetypes. And I just get into the nature of archetypes and why the archetypical feminine is so damn important. And why, isn't that nice? And that chapter was done within a couple days. It was just essentially a primer on basic archetypes and why certain warrior women need to be stacked and curvy, and why you cannot just suddenly make them all look like 14-year-old boys and expect them to be the epitome of the hyper-feminine goddess. It doesn't work that way. So then we get down to chapter 4, and for chapter 4, I do a case study, and that case study is essentially the old She-Ra and the new She-Ra. And that's where things start to get really sick and really twisted. Now, the history of the original She-Ra is just a lot of fun, very interesting. And the thing is that what made that original She-Ra so damn important was that she was the first character ever created for little girls, specifically tailored to the power fantasies of little girls. And it was almost entirely created by women. This whole thing about J. Michael Straczynski, no. He came in after the fact. Whatever credit he's taking, he's really exaggerating his role. It was actually Janice Varney Hamlin was actually the main mind behind the character, along with a few other women and a fantasy artist. Here's the book I'm talking about. But then I get into the comparison of how the original She-Ra was based. How did they create a character that was the embodiment of what little girls wanted? They looked to the past. Valkyries, Diana, the Amazons. There's all these various things that are straight out of myths that are like 6,000 years or older, that they all drew upon. And then we've got the new She-Ra. But before we get into the new She-Ra, the one thing that I really wanted to point out was that they kept claiming today that She-Ra was horrible. She-Ra was awful. She looked like a glamazon. She looked like a stripper. Look at those boobs. Look at that outfit she was wearing. She's horrible. And the thing was, the She-Ra of the 80s was a sexually mature woman doing non-sexual things. There was nothing sexual about her. She was a grown woman. She was, again, a sexually mature woman, but she was being heroic. She was being a leader. She was, being a fully developed individual. She did anything but sex stuff. And then the new She-Ra comes along They reinvent her as a metaphor for transvestism, going trans. How about that? And she goes from a awkward-looking, dykey-looking female to essentially, when she transforms, into an oversized 13-year-old boy, or she looks like Hank from the Venture Brothers. And that's supposedly a much more accurate portrayal of what an actual warrior woman would look like. And it was more age appropriate. There are so many fucking articles about how age appropriate that is. Except the show is just seeped in not just innuendo, but outright gay, trans, you know, all that weird relationship stuff. I mean, the main overarching story is a love-hate relationship that's kind of abusive between Shira and Catra. So don't you think it's kind of fucked up that we've gone from portraying a sexually mature woman doing non-sexual things to essentially a man-boy thing who is underage getting into unhealthy relationships with a cat woman? And I then take that to the next chapter of Fear of the Feminine. And I do a full breakdown into basically there is an absolute fear or even loathing of the feminine within woke culture. And where does this come from? Now, I've been doing tons and tons of research, and I've heard a lot of feminists out there say that this is the new patriarchy. Replacing women with men who say they're women is the new patriarchy. And you know what, ladies? No, you can't lay that on men. You can't lay that on us. And although I applaud a lot of these women for finally standing up and pushing back, and most of them are my age, like Kelly J. Keene and Helen Joyce, and a few others who have really begun to push back. Ladies, you just got to accept it was your fucking ideology that built this. You know, Judith Butler, Beauvoir, you go down the list, and the second wave feminists spent so much time telling us there was no difference between men and women, that, you know, the male and female brain was identical, that bodies were extraneous. And then they went on and on about basically having a female body being an ever-living hell. Did none of them ever at any point think, well, maybe girls would just someday decide, hey, maybe it's easier just to opt out of being female at all? And that's what, you know. And not only that, if you adhere and believe the bullshit of like Judith Butler and Beauvoir, oh, women don't exist. They're made. They were designed by, the idea of the woman was actually made for and made by and for the benefit of the patriarchy. It wasn't a far leap that women would just decide, well, it seems like it'd be better to be a man, or at least masculine. And so I go through all of that. I then go into a chapter that was originally just about Heinlein's Friday. And my God, if it doesn't, every turn that you take, it always comes back to two things: feminism and communism. And you start to realize that commies have been at this since at least the 1930s. And I get into this whole history about how the attack on the family, the attack on femininity, especially the attack on femininity, can be traced back to at least the 30s with the sci-fi writers and a lot of the pulp writers who were communist, and that they had a real hatred of manly men like Howard and Heinlein, and was it Poul Anderson? They hated those guys who loved women. I take it to the next chapter, The Impossible Woman versus the Female Man. And I talk in depth about a book that is considered one of the big feminist sci-fi tomes of the 60s and 70s, of the 70s sci-fi, feminist sci-fi movement. And that was Joanna Russ's The Female Man. And it's a convoluted mess of essentially man-hating, and it portrays a future, hold on, where essentially males and females have separated into two nations, manland and womanland. Yeah, real creative. And eventually, women land defeats man land by two things. They warp and manipulate language to the point that gender becomes indiscernible. Okay? Let me repeat that. The women in this sci-fi novel from this raging feminist, Joanna Russ, their victory comes by fucking up language to the point that it's impossible to discern what gender is. Okay? Then they also create a plague that kills all the men, but that's aside the point. And to this day, this woman's read in women's studies classes and is held up as some great sci-fi writer. And she also was a professed man-hater. I mean, she proudly was a man-hater. She wrote an impassioned defense of Valerie Solanas in The Village Voice, saying that Solanas was innocent and that, you know, it was her right to hate him that much. And again, this is being held up. But what's interesting is how much over and over and over again, and everything I've just read, I've told you about in this book, because we're up to chapter 8 now. At every step of the way, the first thing the feminists have attacked are breasts. Isn't that interesting? Always going after breasts first. Why? Because it's the ultimate signifier of femininity. Not only that, these people seem to be really anti-life. And if you want to talk from a symbolic standard, breasts are essentially, again, one of the ultimate symbols of life giving. So take that as you will. The next chapter after that, which is finished, is Less Isn't More. And I talk about the whole thing in video games and how essentially as more and more feminists came in, the women became flatter and uglier and more mannish. And I get into Tifa Lockhart and Lara Croft. And lo and behold, I found out that, you know what? Gaming was far more diverse and far more forward-thinking for women before the feminists arrived. They made things worse. Now, I've got a chapter I may or may not use called Not Real Women, and I'll mention why in a minute. It's getting filtered into the other chapters. I do a history of the Amazon archetype and how it's essentially where all of this started. Do a chapter on Wonder Woman, and then I do one last chapter about the hero's journey and why boobs of steel characters are so damn important in that equation. Now, here's the hard part, and the part that's just driving me fucking nuts and is just making life such a living hell. I cannot cover this topic without continually returning to shit that's being done to kids. And it's really screwing with me. Now, don't worry as a reader, you're not going to be as sickened as I am, because I'm not going to be exposing you to the horror show of what's going on in the real world. I'm just going to be quoting the stuff that's being used in relation to my premise that these busty warrior women are a quintessential part of our culture, and they exist for a reason, and they must be preserved, and they must be celebrated. And for instance, let's see. I'll read a little bit for you. I haven't done that in a while. I don't know, maybe if I'm going through this and I'm beginning to wonder if I can really. Okay, yeah. So in the Heinlein chapter, when I'm talking about all the hate people receive, I talk about author Sarah Hoyt, and she wrote this book called Dark Ship Thieves, and the character's stacked. But just there, she's genetically engineered and she's stacked. And the sheer amount of hatred on Goodreads this book gets because the character is stacked. Okay. And then I get into this thing where it's like, and something the book also is continually accused of was being genderist. I'm thinking, oh, fuck. Now I have to explain to the audience what that means, because if you don't speak woke, who the fuck is, what's genderism? What the hell does that even mean? And I've been running a lot of this past Kat's mother, and I know that if Kat's mother, a baby boomer, doesn't understand it, I have to explain it. So we'll get into this chapter here, or this section of a chapter. What the heck is genderism? It's already fun. As defined by Bostock versus Clayton County, genderism is the discrimination or prejudice against non-binary people. Non-binary meaning anybody who doesn't identify as male or female. In other words, no matter what gender a person believes themselves to be, they're still afforded the same rights as the rest of us. At face value, this seems pretty straightforward. The problem is, this is not a simple issue of job opportunities or separate but equal water fountains. To accept genderism as real requires hopping on board a whole litany of bizarre assumptions. For instance, if you believe only mothers can give birth and men can't have wombs, well, sorry, dear readers, but you are a genderist bigot. Do you think it's okay to stroll into the office and say, "What's up, ladies?" or "Hey, guys," to your coworkers? Well, you've just assumed everyone's gender, you bastard. Don't you know that's genderist hate speech? Welcome to the post-gender world, my friends, where gender is fluid and sexuality is a spectrum, and you don't need to have a uterus to be a woman. You don't know, don't you know that don't you know that male and female don't really exist? We're just chapped. We're just all trapped in gender. Oh, sorry. We're all just genders trapped within testosterone and estrogen-dominated bodies. At the heart of this confusing ideology is an unwavering belief that no baby is born, but assigned a gender at birth. Only the child can decide for themselves if they're a man, a woman, or any of the other 100+ genders currently recognized by the psychological community. Within the United States, the medical industry is so committed to this. The American Medical Association is so committed to this that in 2021 they recommended sex should be removed from all legal designations on birth certificates. And organizations like the CDC and Planned Parenthood have begun shying away from using feminine signifiers. Meanwhile, corporate America has also been quick to jump on the gender bandwagon. In 2022, the big box chain store, yeah, this stuff's all happening in real time, that's making it more difficult. Target rolled out a new line of queer clothing with shirts bearing slogans like "Gender is a social construct" and "Trans rights are human rights." This includes a line of toddler and children's wear, as well as the Tomboys brand chest binders and packing underwear sized for teens. Brett Cooper of the Daily Wire found those last two items most egregious. I have a problem with the fact that they're being called tomboy. I was a tomboy, she scoffed indignantly. That doesn't mean I need to flatten my chest and walk around pretending I'm a man. On her daily podcast, The Comments Section with Brett Cooper, she called out Target for joining with gender activists who insist tomboys are just males born in the wrong body. It's weird that they're conflating that with being a tomboy. It feels dangerous, Cooper commented. When the queer fashion line arrived at our local Target store, my wife quickly noticed the binders bearing the tomboy's name. Despite her curvy physique, Kat is very much a tomboy, and her clothing reflects it. Her day-to-day wear is black jeans, swap boots, and a snug tank top. That said, with her feminine face and prominent chest, there's no risk of ever being mistaken for a man. This is sick, she told me, looking at the binders. Girls can't even be tomboys anymore. So now I just can't like guy stuff. I have to be a man in the wrong body. She pointed to the display. You know what this is saying, don't you? It says that we should be ashamed of our femininity. This is just another step to erasing females. And for the record, that is the toned down rated G version of what she really said. But fun enough, right? And I didn't include me walking in and asking where the fag clothing was because it wasn't really needed. Anyway, yeah, who would have thought a book about busty, strong archetypes would have to lead down this goddamn path? But for it to make sense, apparently it does. This is where the concept of gender is... Oh, sorry, we jumped ahead a little. Long before Target went queer, author Abigail Schreier had noticed similar attempts to twist the meaning of tomboy. So many women were once tomboys as I was, she wrote in a 2020 New York Post editorial. But tomboy doesn't exist anymore, as any teenage girl will tell you. In its place is an endless litany of gender categories, like agender, non-gender, gender fluid, or trans. In her editorial, Schreier explained how teens across the country who were imperfectly feminine were being told by peers and professionals that they had gender dysphoria, and it was the cause of all their problems. One of these teens, going by the name Desmond, recounted to Schreier the experience while in high school. They were so quick to push hormones on me, putting the thought of surgery in my head, of, yes, this will make you happier, this will make your life easier, this will rid you of your depression and help you become your true self, Desmond recalled. Instead, the testosterone injections she received as part of her transition caused severe uteral pain, which led to a hysterectomy. Realizing she'd made a horrible mistake, Desmond chose to detransition. For all the support and encouragement she'd received during her transition, the moment Desmond embraced her womanhood, no one was really around to help me at that point. This is where the concept of genderism goes from outlandish to outright disturbing. To accept genderism as real means agreeing men and women are not biological realities, but socially constructed costumes determined by. To accept genderism as real means agreeing men and women are not biological realities, but socially constructed costumes determined by the clothing, hairstyle, behaviors, and interests you have. For instance, if a female joins the army or works as a mechanic, queer theory would have you believe she suffers from gender dysmorphia and probably really isn't a woman. Assumptions like these are so amazingly sexist, it's almost comical. When applied to children, though, these delusions can be downright catastrophic. In classrooms across the country, kids are being read books like I Am Jazz, about real-life transgender star Jazz Jennings. Written for preschoolers, this book presents Jazz knowing he was a girl even as a toddler because he played with dolls, wore dresses, and longed to be a cheerleader. It also portrayed his childhood transition as in the most idyllic light. Nowhere does it mention all the problems the gender swap caused at the Jewish day school where Jazz attended. It's a far cry from 1972's groundbreaking William's Doll, the book that famously told kids there's nothing wrong with a boy who wants a doll or a girl who likes toy trucks. Yet as of hey, how you doing, lady? Hey, cutie, what's going on? I'm having a shitty day.
Finish your reading and I'll come back and join you.
Why don't you just join me anyway?
I was going to take care of something.
Oh, okay. Well, once you're flushed the toilet and you're done taking care of things.
No, I'll take care of that later.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to let it fester.
You're going to let it fester?
Yeah.
Okay. Yet, as of 2018, if a child shows a strong rejection of typical feminine or masculine toys or a strong resistance to wearing typically feminine or masculine clothing, that's all that's required for a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. Guess what else? If you disagree with any of this, you aren't just a genderist bigot, you're ignorant too. You see, once upon a time, there was plenty of science proving two X chromosomes didn't make you female. Okay, I'm just going to quote what appeared in Harper's Bazaar because I'm having trouble wrapping my head around the insanity of this. And now I'm going to read the quote. For those who claim, but science says transgenderism isn't real, well, Nazis burned a lot of those papers that said it because they were Nazis. Fortunately, modern scientists can begin to rectify that. That was the justification given by the magazine's political editor, Jennifer Wright, in her article, Transgender Women Are Women, Transgender Men Are Men, as further evidence that transgenderism must be real and has existed since the beginning of time. Wright tells us that in ancient Greece, the intersex goddess Cybele, I'm probably mispronouncing that, was worshipped by trans priests. The irony being, Cybele was neither Greek nor intersex. Her cult was a product of ancient Rome. What's more, this fertility goddess was commonly referred to as the Great Mother and was undeniably female. Regarding Wright's claim about transgender priests, Cybele's cult weren't swapping genders or going in drag. The initiates were castrating themselves. These people are fucking nuts. I mean, seriously, what the fuck is wrong with these people? All right, almost to the end of this. Sadly, none of this is unusual. These days, myth, religion, history, and science are all being forced through the meat grinder of identity politics. In the erasure of sex categories, gender ideology seeks to change not just the present, but the past too. Helen Joyce wrote in her best-selling book, Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality. In her book, Joyce shows that the mad race. Joyce shows in this mad race to remake the world, historical figures like Boadicea, Joan of Arc, and Pharaoh Hatshepsut are all being retroactively turned trans men, although it's literature that has suffered the worst. Even fictional characters are not safe, Joyce continues, mentioning George, the plucky tomboy from Edith Blyton's Famous Five, a series of young adult books that has been a staple of British culture since the 1940s. Being a girl who hated dresses and long hair and loved sailing and climbing, George has been added to the long list of classic characters who are apparently no longer female. Within the realm of academia and activism, Mulan, Yentl, Pippi Longstocking, Joe from Little Women, and Charlotte Lucas from Pride and Prejudice are all now being reinterpreted as trans men.
Charlotte Lucas is being interpreted as trans?
Oh, you want to jump?
What the fuck?
Come on over.
Where the hell are they getting that from?
Come on over. I can't comment. It's okay. This is
Charlotte Lucas? What the hell? No. Where did you read that? I don't doubt it, but where did you read that?
Oh, there are tons of lists that are being put up now that from schools and.
Charlotte Lucas?
Yes, because she rejected marriage.
She did not reject marriage. She married Mr. Collins. How do you reject marriage when you get married?
These people are fucking stupid. That's how.
Okay. Jane Austen has at least one self-insert in every one of her books, and that's not a bad
I'm
thing.
gonna go get coffee, okay?
Well, I can't go on a rant without you.
You need me here for
Yes.
Okay, I'll hold your boobs for moral support.
Well, I think you need that more than me, quite frankly.
Go.
Okay. Jane Austen has at least one self-insert in every one of her books, and she's one of the rare times where I'm going to say that's not a bad thing, because it's not a Mary Sue. It's just her in her books, and that's fine. Charlotte Lucas is that character. Charlotte Lucas was 29 and unmarried. Nobody asked her to marry them. She was looking down the long barrel of being a spinster and an old maid, and then she was proposed to by Mr. Collins. There are things with that character I'll go down. That's a completely different story, but that's her story arc, and she marries him because, again, she was staring down the barrel of being an old maid. Nobody had proposed to her previously. It's a good match. He was not unwealthy, and he had ties to a very wealthy family. So he would have, this match would have brought things to her family. Was she unhappy with the match? No, she wasn't unhappy. Was it fairy tale? No, it was far from fairy tale. In fact, she even talks about how she was quite happy with the fact that her husband does his thing and she does his, and they don't see each other until they meet in the marriage bed at the end of the night. But she's not trans. Where the fuck do they get that idea? She's not even a lesbian.
Well, I'm going to retitle this cast to Attack of the Genderqueer Revisionists.
I am baffled by how the hell that is some skewed lens you are looking at the world in if you think Charlotte Lucas is trans. Oh my God. Did they even? No, they didn't read the book.
Okay.
They read the Cliff Notes.
Okay, well.
Sorry,
I think I changed the name. Maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, I renamed it Attack of the Genderqueer Revisionists. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe it'll get it pulled. Who knows?
Whatever, you know. It's just stupid all the way around.
But, I mean, these people are fucking insane.
Who else is on this list?
Oh, you didn't hear?
I was promoting the fact that...
that I'm on the air ranting?
No, that we're at FanCon.
Oh, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Why don't you promote right now, and then I'll tell you.
Okay. Hey, everybody. If you're in the Phoenix area, please come down to Phoenix Fan Expo, which is in downtown Phoenix. We are... Oh, shoot. What booth are we at? I didn't find out until today. B as in Bravo 700. We're in the 700 row. In fact, we're just down the way from Bookman's. So yes, Bookman's has a booth there this year. And I have to say, I haven't been to a con in 3 years. It wasn't since 2019. And I can't recall the last con I did that I would say was good. But just walking around a little bit, I'm very impressed by this convention. It kind of has some of the feelings from the old school WonderCon, or that one year that Long Beach Comic Con was really good. It kind of has that vibe. So I'm very happy with the things that I was seeing.
Good.
And I had some nice young lady walk by and say that her team wasn't there yet. And she didn't want to sit around doing nothing, so she asked to help me set up. I did politely decline because as Ishi can tell you, I'm territorial when it comes to setting up a booth.
I've learned just to let you set the booth up. Don't even try and be helpful.
But the fact that some random person was kind enough to ask if I needed assistance, it's like, wow, I've never had that before.
Okay, so guess who else is now apparently a trans man?
Okay.
Pippi Longstocking.
No, she's like one of the ultimate tomboys.
Yeah, well, apparently there are no such thing as tomboys.
Well, as we've learned, these
Joe
people are morons.
From Little Women.
No.
Is another one they've listed.
No.
Mulan.
No. If anything, Joe is one of those women who bemoans the fact that she can't go to war, but she very much so wants to be female still. She wants to keep her gender. She just wishes that she could have male gender roles. That's different.
Yeah, it's vastly different. Apparently also, I don't get into this because this is a bit more, I guess, esoteric, but apparently a lot of characters that have been coded in fiction as probably being lesbians are all being deemed trans men now.
Have you noticed that they do that? That there are certain characters that if it is ambiguous, or even if it's not ambiguous, they still want to slap their label on so that they can say, look, we've got representation. We've always had representation. It's like, no, you haven't.
I'm going to be upfront. I'm really sick of all these comments where we get into the argument. Now, look, I have nothing against trans people. They have a right. You know what? Fuck it. We've all been saying that for the last 10 goddamn years. You know what? I don't need to preface my argument with, you guys are fucking up.
Look, I'm just going to say it flat out. Being trans is not the norm. You're an oddity. And I'm going to be totally blunt. You're a freak. If you're actually trans, where you actually have gender dysphoria, where there's something chemically with your brain where you are not correct for the body that biology has given you, you are by definition a freak. But this is not.
Did we ever need to make apologies like, I have nothing against little people? I have nothing. but you can't play on the Lakers. You know,
No.
nobody would think to do that.
No, it's just
like,
you can't.
Yeah, okay.
And yes, there have been people who had, gender dysphoria in the past. And you know what? They just quietly made the transition and no one was the wiser because they wanted to be recognized under their the gender that they felt the most comfortable with. Wanting this parade to say, look at me, I had to transition. No, that's you wanting a parade. That's you that's you being an attention whore. And no, fuck that.
When I lived in the Bay Area and then came to San Diego as well, there were trans women, I guess, or I am so confused now. Men who presented as women, who did it well, and you just ignored it. Nobody said anything. It was life, whatever.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
The only time it was ever a problem when I was at Platt, and there was that really big, burly Mexican dude with the gigantic fake boobs that were like bigger than his head, who dressed like a whore and just would not shut the fuck up about his womanhood.
Well, again, it's him making a point of it, him making a spectacle of it.
Yeah,
and that's the thing, making a spectacle.
No, you're not trans. You're just a fucked up asshole. Okay? If you're actually trans, no true trans person announces to the world, hey, everyone, I've come into your bathroom. By the way, I have a penis.
I'm just thinking, if you make the Catman of San Diego look stable and sane.
Yeah, I mean, the point was to pass. The point had always been to pass.
Yeah.
Not advertise.
No, pass.
Not constantly go on insisting that everyone else change their life for them. Fuck that shit. And I'm certainly not going to change literature and history to make some shithead who's not mentally stable feel good.
Exactly.
Okay, who else did they name? They claimed Joan of Arc was a man, a trans man.
No,
I highly doubt that, being she was Catholic.
Yeah, she was Catholic, and we know she was female. We know that for a fact.
Hatshepsut, I think.
Hatshepsut?
Yes.
No.
There's another one they claimed.
No.
Get into it.
Well, for one thing, she promoted herself as being the living embodiment of Hathor.
Wait, how the fuck do they claim the woman who was famous for having jugs bigger than Dolly Parton as a sign that she was a goddess is a man?
Yeah, exactly.
Explain to the audience.
Well, Hatshepsut, and I'm probably mispronounced it there.
Who declared her giant tits proved she was a goddess.
Yes, specifically the goddess Hathor, who was the goddess of fertility and motherhood. Hathor is also seen as a pregnant hippo with tits that perpetually leak milk.
That doesn't sound pleasant.
No, but it was a sign of fertility. And it was yet another symbol of the fertility of the Nile. She was one of the few females to take the throne as pharaoh in her own right, which in itself is an accomplishment. And basically, she was one of the few females that had a dick big enough to say, I am ruling Egypt in my own right. I'm not ruling through my husband. I'm not ruling through my son. And I'm not pretending to be male, which we pretty much think that Nefertiti did for a short time. Hatshepsut ruled in her own right and said, instead of the living embodiment of Osiris, I am the living embodiment of Hathor, one of the most feminine goddesses in the Egyptian pantheon.
You see these cans? Do these cans lie?
Yeah, actually, and that was the thing. All of her statues show that she has pretty big cans.
How do you spell that? By the way, I'm looking at the Hathor goddess from Stargate. She's one hot lady, but she's a bit... No, I would expect her to...
She was hot, though. That episode stuck with me. She was hot. Okay. It was her body language. It's Hap, H-A-P. Shet, S-H-E-T. There we go,
Thank
S-U-T.
you.
Hapshet Sut.
So yeah, that's a part of what I was. I didn't even get into the part why I'm having the post-traumatic stress, but Kat's here and we're having fun, so I won't get into it.
Are you sure? I mean,
No, I was giving everyone references to the hole of sickness I'm falling down. And, I've removed all the really maggot vomiting sick shit that's not necessary, but I've had to go through.
mm-hmm.
But I'll give the short version and I'll do another episode on it later. Being away from my family as long as I have, a lot of memories are coming back to me. And they really fucked with me bad. Really bad. I recently learned I'm not colorblind, which is disturbing to really find out. All my life I'd been told I was colorblind because I don't want to get into why, but I was repeatedly told I was colorblind. And I described the experience of colorblindness to Kat a few times when I'd asked her for assistance in artwork, saying, okay, well, I need to do this color and it's doing this. And I don't know how we finally figured it out, but you said, you're saying that it's changing color before your eyes. Colorblind people don't have the rods to see the color at all. You're actually seeing the color and then it's changing color in front of you. And we realized, no, this is a cognitive issue.
It's not a physical blindness.
And I was recalling that didn't happen until a certain point in life when really bad things started happening in my youth. So that's the first one. And then we started talking about other things. And like, for instance, at one point, I was exceptionally good at math. And I just started going off the notion that I was horrible at it and I couldn't do it for shit. And we started talking. We started going back to how I got to that point and that assumption. And what it came down to is that I was excelling through math, and then I got into the last section of algebra, and the teacher was awful, is what it was. And I just bombed. I just continually started bombing. And the next thing you know, my mom's using the excuse, oh, well, you're learning disabled. You've always sucked at math. And then that was the new narrative. I always sucked at math, and I just accepted it. And I'm starting to realize how many things I just accepted as true because I had been told over and over and over again that it was true. And that's really nerve-wracking. And then we can get into the fact that she punched me in the face and KO'd me and just other shit like that. And, sister got new clothes, I got hand-me. I could do the whole sob story, but you guys don't need to hear it. It's not that important. The matter is I realized why these two things are colliding. And that is because one of the breaking points with my family where I said never again was when my little brother, my younger brother and his wife, decided that their 3-year-old was a boy. And doing this research, realizing that they knew the exact things to say to get the diagnosis. And in a sense, I'm seeing the process start all over again. We've got a child here being lied to repeatedly. Oh, no, you're a boy. You're a boy. No. No, what you thought, that's not true. You're a boy. It's the same fucking game. And it's been affecting me. It's been affecting me real hard. So, okay, we want to go through some of these?
Sure.
Somebody said Annie Oakley has been thrown into the list as well.
Really? You know what? At this point, the fact that they changed the race of Anne Boleyn, nothing would surprise me. It pisses me off, but nothing surprises me anymore. What these people will try to do in order to justify their agenda.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing that really made me ill was that my mom knew it was wrong when they were doing this to my niece.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, I could tell she knew this wasn't right, but she enabled it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But more disturbing was the fact that my dad's reality could turn on a fucking dime. And something that he had known for roughly 60 years of his life suddenly just all changed without a thought. And then he quotes Stephen Colbert as proof. He heard on Stephen Colbert. You know, you don't want to think your family's that stupid.
Oh, he's done that a couple of times where you've had conversations with him where he would like fight you to the death practically on an issue, and then he'd be like, "Oh, well, I heard on Stephen Colbert, or I heard on oh fuck, what's his
John
name?
Oliver, that other fucktard.
John Oliver, or no, I'm specifically thinking of Bill Maher.
Oh,
You know, I heard on Bill Maher."
well, the thing is Bill Maher is like slowly catching up to 2016.
Yeah,
Yeah, never be late. Yeah, better late than never, eh, Bill?
yeah.
Cutting edge there, aren't you?
But he'd go, "You know, I just heard this and it's very thought provoking." And you'd go, "Yeah, I told you that 6 months ago." And then he'd fight you on that. "No, you didn't."
It was more like I told you that 2 years ago.
That too.
So,
But anyway. Tishan, a lot of trans people are autogenophiles, autoandrophiles, and attention whores.
thoroughly agree.
Mm-hmm.
Thoroughly agree. What do you think Ross was?
Ross?
Yeah. Other than a timid gay boy who said, or not gay, he claimed to be lesbian afterward.
I kind of thought he was in the same category as Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where, you know, too much testosterone to be one, but something in the head said that being male was bad. And it was specifically an absolute rejection of being male. And really, I didn't think that he was trans. I just figured that something catastrophic happened in his life just based on reading Wet Moon.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, growing up with my second wave feminist mom,
Mm-hmm.
I had a very hard cognitive dissonance, not dissonance. I had a hard time squaring what she claimed men were versus what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And just this repeated message that essentially men were the cancer upon the world. But, you know, it was never dad who was giving me the black eyes or feeding me rotten food.
Yeah. Oh. My experience wasn't so close to home, but for me, you know, it was interesting realizing one day in 7th grade that both genders had stereotypes of the other, both had their rules of engagement for the other, and both were neither wrong nor correct. It was just, that's how the genders had, or the sexes, I should say, had learned to work with each other. And neither was better or worse. It was all about the individual. You know, was the individual a good person or were they a shitbag?
Okay.
12D. The ironic thing is that if we had genetic engineering and true transformation, most trans would not take the said new genetic therapy.
Why would you say that? I mean, these chicks seem to be all in for fucking themselves up to the level of damage I've seen so many young women do to themselves is terrifying.
I actually do and do not agree with 12D, and this is why. It is amazing what females will do if it means that they suffer.
Yeah.
If they can say, "I've suffered, I've gone through so much, I had to deal with so much." If it was just as simple as you know, hopping into a booth and popping out in a new body, yeah, they may do that as far as changing clothing goes, but it wouldn't be something that they could say, "I suffered to do this." You know, look, you know, I've had top surgery and I've gone through all of this, and these are my scars that I'm showing off. Look at what I've had to go through in order to get here.
Well, gene therapy would be no walk in the park. I mean, you'd basically be feeling every cell in your body die and be replaced. And that apparently the sensation would be akin to breaking an addiction from heroin, but worse would be the sensation. So
Now, if you were selling it as that, yeah, they'd be all for it.
because literally every cell in your body has to die and essentially be replaced.
No, if you sell it to them like that, yeah, they'd be all for it. But if it's simply a case of you can switch bodies like you can switch clothing, it suddenly would lose the appeal, I bet.
And I would say the other thing is what happens when they actually become real men through genetic engineering and find out that nobody really gives a flying fuck about a man who suffered.
Well,
and a guy who bitches about how much he suffered is a pussy if he wants sympathy.
There's certainly a lot of accounts of that, and also how they come to the hard realization that they are not going to be God's gift to women.
Yeah, that's true.
Or yeah.
Oh God, I must have been doing a lot of yelling or ranting. My head's kind of light. Let's see. Calamity Jane, she wanted to bang Wild Bill Hickok, didn't he?
Yeah, she did.
She was like butch to the. I mean, she might have.
She was butch, yes, but
she might have gone both ways. But she definitely liked manly men.
Yeah, that's why she rode with them.
Yeah.
She is definitely one of the poster children of being a tomboy.
But the other thing that gets me the most is that their idea of what a woman is one great big stereotype. And what they think a woman is Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, from the birth of second wave feminism, and I can say that because I did the research, the day second wave feminism was born, which was the 1968 Miss America pageant protest, Barbie was the effigy which they projected all the things they hated on.
Mm-hmm.
That Barbie was what they hated.
Well, also, especially now, if you get them to say, okay, what is it that you don't want to be? What are these characteristics? They can't really define it.
Yeah.
Are
you talking about the Matt? Oh God, what's his name on Dr. Phil?
Well, yeah, all the times it's like, well, what is a woman? If you are saying that somebody is no longer going to be a woman, what is the thing that they are no longer going to be? And they won't define it. What the fuck is that? Apparently, the one thing that we can all agree on is that they see a woman as somebody with tits.
Yeah.
Because apparently still having your menstrual cycle and still giving birth are perfectly fine for a trans person. So it's specifically an attack on the tits.
So what happens when a trans penis gives birth?
When a trans penis gives birth?
Yeah, apparently trans men can get pregnant.
There's a lot of ripping.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, God, this is fucking brain dead. No, I'm done with this.
I'm with you.
We have been, as a culture, we have been far too fucking nice, far too tolerant, far too accepting. I mean, what was it? When it came to comics, we were all more than happy to let all the crazy feminists in. When they said, oh, we want some leadership roles, we were more than happy to give it to them. We want books. We were more than happy. What did it get us?
Well, also, I'm hearing lots of stories of top surgery. I'm hearing lots of talk about getting binders. I'm hearing lots of talk of stuffing pants. I'm not hearing talk of getting the surgery to actually create a pseudo phallus or actually create a penis. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
In fact, seem to be perfectly fine with keeping the female genitalia intact and just stuffing pants. It's again an attack on breasts.
Yeah, it is.
What is with that? Why is it that breasts are the ultimate sign of what? Apparently, that is the one thing that is a woman, is breasts.
And why is it that female achievements don't matter?
Yeah.
I mean,
That now all of a sudden you know all these females are now trans or whatever
Right.
in their
Well,
eyes.
well, no. I mean, we've feminists have way overplayed the women throughout history that have done amazing things. And I mean, down to the fact that they've lied about a lot of shit.
Like in Man Eaters.
Yeah.
That montage that we did in
Yeah.
Man Eaters.
All the just no, woman did not discover DNA. Stop lying.
No.
She took some pictures. Actually, she didn't even take them. She developed them.
Yeah.
So, the fact is, feminists have long, but see, they focused on achievements in the masculine realm.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, no matter how many times they bring up, oh, well, Madame Curie, look, she's special because she's the exception of the rule.
Yeah.
That's it. This is not representative of women. She's impressive because she's the exception of the rule.
I don't see them holding up like Elizabeth I, as a paragon of female accomplishment. She accomplished a lot of things during her reign. She is one of those people to hold up in high esteem, and they don't.
But, again, throughout history, there are things in the feminine sphere
mm-hmm.
that have been quintessential for the survival of civilization.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want any of that to be looked upon as an achievement.
Or I will say, the few times that they do, they want a parade, thrown for it. And it's like, no, those women were just doing their job to survive. It was necessary, and we should recognize it. But it's not like, an amazing accomplishment or amazing feat.
No, what it was I just remember that phase of the 90s where every fucking chick wanted a fucking parade and trophy for popping out a baby, and none of them actually did the raising. Because why don't you fucking raise a kid and I'll give you a parade?
Well, now they want one for aborting it, but anyway.
Yeah, there should not be scorecard t-shirts for abortion.
No.
Yes, those exist.
Yes, they do.
Scorecard t-shirts. Sold by Gloria Steinem, I believe. Fine woman that she is.
Wonderful. I kind of wanted Kat Nishi to read Transgender Warriors, Making History from Joan of Arc to RuPaul for Adventures of Awful, but I don't want to get banned by Ishi and Kat.
Wait, does that exist?
Why would you get us banned for that?
Does that exist?
That sounds awful.
And yeah, another thing. I really feel bad for all those gay men of my generation and the boomers who fought so fucking hard to be normalized and for gay rights, because I watched the hell those guys went through.
And they did go through hell. They actually did suffer.
These people were shot. They were beaten in the streets. They had their lives destroyed. There was the whole AIDS crisis. You name it. These people, that was a fight. That was a fight comparable to the civil rights movement. And unfortunately, I think that the only way they're going to save their own goddamn community is for those men to come back out and slap the crap out of fuckheads like RuPaul, who were promoting child drag queens. And
yeah.
And seriously, I mean, back in the day, gay men beat the crap out of NAMBLA for trying to be part of their group. They need to come back. I don't care if they're in their late 50s or 60s. The gay men of the 80s need to come back with their baseball bats and just pound the crap out of every one of these maps trying to join in.
I want an army of leather daddies.
That would work. That would absolutely work. And then they could torch Disney.
That would be awesome.
Okay, let's see.
George, I think this trans agenda is just a power trip, like the Four Lights episode of TNG.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one teacher who was said he had, what was it, 100 and something days to turn his class into little radicals,
Yeah.
and that he was going to scare the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
When I was rewatching the videos, on his shoulder, he has the V in sock symbol and 2 plus 2 equals 5 on his
Really?
fucking shoulder.
Jesus.
Yeah, there's someone who needs to be hit by a hit and run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of happened.
Abigail, I think the people who chop the breasts off just want to go back to being like a child. They see the breast as dirty within themselves, often due to conditioning or abuse.
Well, do you want to talk about the thing that all these trans men or non-binaries don't seem to really want to act like men?
Yeah, actually, you definitely have something there, because all of them think that becoming male means that they get to act like either prepubescent or teenage boys. They don't ever actually want to be adult men. You know, they think that it allows them the freedom to remain immature and remain childlike.
Yeah, I could really do without this entire generation of very young millennials or older Zoomers who think being a man means acting like the way a 13-year-old boy does.
Mm-hmm.
Not actually how a 13-year-old boy acts, acting the way they think one does.
Yeah. And they seem to miss that whole Beavis and Butthead phase.
They don't understand it.
They don't.
They're not men. They're not masculine.
And if they were actually tomboys, they would have gotten that phase.
Right.
No, it was actually a very strange realization. The other night, Ishii found that Kids in the Hall is back, which is great. And for those of you who don't know, it was a sketch comedy show from the 90s who did a lot of cross-dressing and had a lot of gay humor. And the troupe has a new set of like 8 episodes, I think, on Amazon. And so we were watching it, and we're absolutely delighted to find that the humor is still just as sharp and just as witty, and they haven't gone woke. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But one of the actors, Scott Thompson, he has a drag character that he plays called Francesca Fiore. And Francesca Fiore is like the absolute most wonderful bitch you have ever met in your entire life. And all she wants to do is drink wine and fuck. And I'm watching this skit with Francesca Fiore again and suddenly realizing Scott Thompson is playing an adult woman, an adult woman who has adult consequences to her actions and adult needs and adult desires. And all these trans fucks want to be stuck at teenagers. And that's what's wrong with them.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? I'm wearing down. Hey, do me a favor. Buy a book.
If any of you will be in the Phoenix area, please come and see us tomorrow. Show starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, ends at 5. Same with Saturday and Sunday. We would love to see you, and we'd love to meet you in person.
All right. Bye.